Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from today. I'd like to welcome you and thank you for joining this TechStrong learning experience with Futurum Group and StackGen. A couple of quick housekeeping notes. This session is going to be recorded. It will be available afterward on demand, and we will send you a link to the recording after we conclude. We do have some resources or some handouts in the resource section on the left side of your screen. Make sure to click those, scroll through those, check those out at any time throughout the presentation and discuss them in the chat if you'd like. We do have the chat on the right side of the screen. Anything that you want to talk about, your experiences, your comments, your understanding on the matter, we do want to engage with you, so make sure that you use the chat on the right side. We've also got the Q&A section on the right side. Any questions that you've got, make sure you pop those into the Q&A section. Like I said, we do want to engage with you. So put those in anytime. We're going to answer those as best we can throughout the program, at the end of the program, and any that we're not able to get to, we want to make sure that we can reach out to you guys after the program ends. Let's go ahead and kick off today's topic. Tickets, bad. Self-service, good. Build developer infrastructure portals that scale. And today, I'm going to go ahead and turn this program over to you, Guy Currier. He's the analyst here at Futurum Group with me. Guy, go ahead and take it away.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I'm Guy Currier. I'm an analyst at Futurum Group, and welcome to this DevOps.com webinar sponsored by StackGen. We're here to discuss developer infrastructure portals and how maybe we can finally escape this time-consuming, progress blocking, ticketing process for infrastructure provisioning and scaling that we all seem to still be living with, at least in some ways. And with me today from StackGen are two experienced practitioners in this area. Dharani Vijaykumar is a principal product manager at StackGen. He focuses on cloud discovery, lifecycle management, and governance capabilities at StackGen. And Arunav Sarkar is one of the founding engineers at StackGen. He leads solutions engineering there. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you, Guy.
Yeah. So here we are again, talking about tickets. I feel like it's been 20 years at this point that we solved the tickets problem, solved supposedly with self-service. Remember, the cloud, self-service on demand. What happened? I mean, didn't we supposedly solve this with cloud? Or then didn't we solve it with service catalogs? And then didn't we solve it with DevOps? I mean, first Arunav, then Dharani, tell me, why are we still here?
Yeah, I feel like for the past 20 years, we've had solutions to ticketing problems. But if you look at ticket load today, it's probably more than it's ever been, right? And it's funny you mentioned, yeah. And it's funny you mentioned the cloud, right? Because I think public cloud has made a lot of formerly difficult things a lot simpler, right? But from a application developer team's perspective, public cloud has actually just vastly increased the scope of what a dev needs to know when it comes to just deployment options, right? Where to deploy to, how to actually deploy, right? This is where DevOps historically has kind of been focusing on, smoothing out deployment pipelines, right? Making them more automated, and where tickets were necessary, try to automate those. But DevOps historically has not really helped fix some of that initial learning curve and skill gap for app devs to just get pipelines instrumented correctly in the first place, right?
Yeah, so Dharani, like skill gap. I mean, aren't the tools, isn't the market, hasn't it been trying to respond to this for decades at this point?
Yeah, I think I'm going to double click on what Arunav said and answer that question, Guy, right? Like the public cloud gave us awesome APIs to actually manage infrastructure, right? And DevOps, pretty much a great culture, right? In terms of cohesively pulling together developers and platform teams and building great services, right? Customer-facing services. But still, the cognitive load is very high. Think about it, right? Like not only Fortune 500 companies, right? Pretty much any company is a software company these days, right? Like you get hundreds of tickets and the cognitive load is just too much. Yeah. And there are not many tools or products that take an integrated approach even yet, right? Like there's a day zero problem, day one problem, and day two problem, you name it, right? It keeps growing, right? Like, and the cognitive load on both the DevOps, platform engineering, and the developers are very high. And that's why we believe it's still an unsolved problem there. the ticketing.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned integration. We're going to get to that in a minute. But let's get to platform engineering, because I think a lot of folks might say that we're finally solving this ticketing problem thanks to the appearance of platform engineering. Now, I've done a fair amount of coverage, and my team has covered platform engineering from a lot of different angles right now. And I think there's some question right now: is it a set of tools? Is it a paradigm? Is it a job function or discipline? Is it a culture of its own? Is it just DevOps again? I might say, or I initially used to say, that it's just the new site reliability engineering, which in turn was the new infrastructure operations. One thing that's different, though, I think we can say, is that the focus of platform engineering is on the developer experience. And I always mentally expand that, by the way, to include the application manager experience. So, Dharani, what's your take, just to go in further depth on what you were just saying? Is there really some, you refer to DevOps as culture? It's far more than that, I would say. But is there something new now with this appearance and rise of platform engineering, whether culturally or technologically? Are we finally binding DevOps to ops? Binding dev to ops and vice versa?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, right? Like, if you look at history, the reason why SRE took off is the whole capacity increase, right? Like the scaling requirements, and more users started going to the same website or web workload, right? That's why SRE became a great important function. Now, if you take that thinking and kind of like understand like why platform engineering is more relevant now, it's developer velocity, right? If you think about it, like I said, right, every company is a software company. They are under immense pressure, right? Like I'm talking about real business pressure, right? The ability to deliver software and win consumers in their market, right? Like take good or solid consumer-facing companies like Spotify or Netflix, right? Like they have grown their business sheerly by introducing new products that work at scale, right? In order to successfully create such a business, you need something like a platform engineering to sustain that business with more products and the discipline of onboarding more developers, right? And onboarding developers is not merely a an internal metric, right? Like there are companies, even in boardroom conversation, they talk about like how many developers they have onboarded and like what's their velocity like, right? I believe that's the primary reason why platform engineering is actually becoming an important function going forward, right? And it's going to stand here for a while, right? Because as we realize now, delivering software is super important, even in this age of AI, right? Like it's prime time for businesses to understand that.
Definitely, but we're still not saying, and this is not what this webinar is for, we're not quite saying what platform engineering is to address this problem. I mean, I think if I were to say, you know, what the platform engineering team is doing, it seems simple. I could state it as follows: install, provision, manage infrastructure, whether it's on-prem kit or services or a combination of both, of course. Create the service catalogs using YAML and connected it to the infrastructure. Infrastructure's code for automated provisioning, the user interface, the IDP. But you know, there's a lot of these available off the shelf. Have an issues tracker, you know, a few more elements, but we had all these elements years ago, and we're still not there. I mean, why is it not, in fact, so simple? Arunav, let's give you a say.
Yeah. So you know, I think when we're looking at things like developer velocity, for example, right? Developer velocity has been already kind of top line focus for the past decade plus, right? I think the difference now with what we're seeing with platform engineering, like conceptually, is that historically all of the knobs and dials we were tuning to try to ramp up developer velocity, we're not really listening to the developers for what they were saying their pain points actually were, right? That's ended us up in a state where, you know, if you look at a lot of enterprise companies, a lot of them right now are in the state where they say, hey, we have too many different panes of glass, right? And we had 10 standards, we keep adding more standards. Nothing really got consolidated. We just keep adding more ways to do work. It's just confusing, right? It adds too much cognitive load. right now, I think the trend in platform engineering has kind of arisen because we finally realized that if you look at the pain points that devs are complaining about, right? Solving some of those pain points are actually having a way more direct effect on their performance than we previously realized, right? And that's where now it seems that we've been kind of figuring out which knobs to turn based on what can we just directly put out some of the fires for what devs are complaining about. And I think that's kind of what's given rise to this modern platform engineering, which is still solving the dev velocity problem, which is the time old problem, right? Just solving it in like a bit of a new way.
It's a bit of an unsatisfying answer. Maybe it's a start to an answer, but it's almost like you're saying platform engineering, the key difference, like what I said, is focused on the developer experience. You're addressing the developer complaints. You're addressing the developer, or as I would say, also the application manager's need or product manager's need. Yes, no?
I think, well, it's that plus, I mean, like, for example, what you just described, right? That's been definitely a mission statement of a traditional infra operations team even 5 or 10 years ago, right? The process that they laid down 5 or 10 years ago probably still was not really resulting in a high developer experience or like a satisfactory developer experience, right? Yes, they had automation pipelines, right? But this is human-gated automation in a lot of times, right? And while the automation worked in maybe like 80 to 90% of situations, in that 10%, 20% of situations where something had to be tweaked, that would still bottleneck the devs, right? And that would still pull in other teams or like require other teams to be pulled in order to actually solve the issue. And I think that's where right now the modern trend in platform engineering is figuring out, okay, how do we not just solve for the happy path? How do we also set up escape valves so that whenever a dev is spinning something up or trying to do some sort of self-service operation, right, that doesn't exactly follow the plan that we've tried to lay out for them, how do we give them the path to still be successful without needing to call somebody? That's what I think the modern route for platform engineering has been taking.
I almost feel like, so I've always had an issue with the word platform because it means so many different things, but I almost feel like you're starting to hint at a nice definition of platform. It's sort of the platform is almost the counterpoint to process. What you're describing sounds like, 5 years ago, it's the same goal, but it was a little bit more process oriented, process requirements oriented, what have you. If what you're providing is a platform, you're providing something within which it's a framework, it's a set of tools, it's a set of environments, whatever it is, within which the developer can follow her or his own process. The platform provides them with more flexible capability. Does that make sense to you? First, Arunav, then Dharani.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. I think if you look at a platform as fundamentally like a set of tools that should be intuitive enough and linked to interconnected enough for a developer to use, for a developer to be able to, with a relatively minimal or minimized learning curve, figure out, how to actually use like the scope of the platform that's available to them, right? And then basically get things done, not necessarily following a rigid process, but still being compliant with some overarching, compliance security guardrail like fundamentals, right? And doing all of that as fast as possible. I think that is what we are looking at as a successful platform engineering function.
So, Dharani, your focus at StackGen is on a lot of critical elements to this discovery, lifecycle management, and so forth. Is what Arunav and I are saying? Does it make sense to you as well?
Yeah, I think I'll push the envelope a little bit farther, Guy, right, in terms of what's the definition of platform and what's sort of the scope, right, of a platform engineer, right? I practice myself being in a platform or in my past roles as well. So I'm going to take that liberty and define that in a more what you call deeper way as I have practiced and understood. Yeah. So if you take the mental model, right, like let's take the product word. Yeah, you launch a product, there are like these specifications, and you got to meet the end consumers or your customers where they are, right? It's very strict, right? Like you make it or break it, right? Like only when you deliver features that are needle moving, you make it in the market, right? So that's a very, very stringent or a brutal world out there, right? Similarly, the platform engineering practice is actually no different if you think about it, right? The same stringence, the same specifications, the same, what do you call, your developers or your internal consumers or customers, right? The same mindset or mental model is applicable to platform engineering as well, right? The only sort of difference is your product is the platform pretty much, right? And what are the capabilities that you're delivering are not only developer velocity, we spoke a lot about it, but also a few other things that is going to move the needle for the business, like compliance and specifically to my role at StackGen, right? Like governance and whatnot, right? These are all layers that can be horizontal, and without adding new features in the product, you can actually contribute to the top line of the company. For example, if you take a framework like a compliance framework like Marzi or FedRAMP and whatnot, right? Platform engineering teams are actually more closer to it and can enable their product teams, right? So I see platform teams as more of a extension for the business to deliver business goals as well. So I want us to keep that in mind too, in terms of the
Interesting, and that touches back on the idea that enabling developers, training developers, hiring ones with the specialty skills or what have you, is a viable approach, but it may not be as effective as just enabling the platform team if it's closer to the business in those areas. I mean, compliance is a really great example of it, where there are all sorts of potentially data protection, data retention. For example, policies and requirements to adhere to, and everybody would probably rather that was done sort of automatically or automagically, depending on how deep it is in the platform. Yes. I'm just wondering if I'm on the right track there, like platform engineering, pushing the product forward through inherent capabilities of the platform. Like you said, the platform is the product.
Yeah, I think Arunav was saying something. You were muted, Arunav.
Arunav, go ahead. Oh, we have a little audio issue with Arunav's audio, so we'll keep talking. You and me, Dharani.
Yeah.
Is live television, everyone. Okay, so is this the leading edge of this right now, Dharani? Is the focus on whether it's an IDP or just an infrastructure portal, but like consolidation, integration, that sort of thing? What's the leading edge of this effort and push to support product development through platform engineering and through tighter integration with what the developers are doing? I'm sorry, serving the developers' needs.
Yeah, it's an excellent question, right? So the North Star or leading edge is basically being ahead of things that are going to fail, right? As a platform engineering team, you're not only a gatekeeper, right? Like you're a velocity enabler, which means that your job has a lot more things to do, right? For example, I'll pick a couple of leading edge dimensions, right? One is being a little bit predictive about the governance, right? Like 2 or 3 months or 2 quarters ahead, you should be in a position to tell, like, hey, these are all the frameworks that we want the products to abide by, right? Like that's one. Yeah. Not only from a compliance perspective, that's one to it. Like we briefly spoke about FedRAMP, NIST, and Marcy and all of that, but also from a cloud best practices perspective, right? Like the cloud providers actually have contributed a lot of best practices, right? Like AWS's well-architected framework is a classic one, right? Those are all like prescriptive guidances, but what about using those prescriptive guidances and actually having a tool which is predictive, right? Like I know we are in the age of AI. Why not leverage AI to multiply the platform engineer, right? That is something that we see as North Star or leading edge, right? That's on the governance side. Secondly, on the automation itself, right? Like we spoke about companies like Netflix and Spotify and many fast-growing companies, right? Like why are they faster? It's not because they hire more people. That is true as well, but it's also about the automation aspect, right? Like, let's say I, as a developer, want to use Snowflake provider to build another data mart, right? I don't want to be bottlenecked by a platform engineering team, right? Like, and how do we sort of solve that problem? Not by hiring one more platform engineering engineer, right, to build the Terraform scripts, but actually by using automated tools to generate Terraform modules, right? So automation in both governance and infrastructure creation, Terraform is a golden standard actually, right? Like which supports all the multiple cloud vendors. These are two North Star-ish dimensions, right? Aside from that, there is also this day two problem once things go into production. That's more on the SRE side, right? Like of self-healing and whatnot. These are all the things that I believe and our company believes as well, right? In terms of what's leading edge. Again, we are still early in the market or in the ecosystem, but we are pushing the envelope by building tools around these leading edge tech for platform engineers.
Yeah, and one of the things, if you guys can hear me again, one of the
oh yeah, you're back.
Perfect. One of the things that we've been seeing in the field, actually, with different enterprise engineering teams sizes, is that usually up until around the 150 to 200 engineer mark in an organization, on every single app team, there is usually a specialist, just by chance, or actually I haven't really figured out how. But by chance, there is a specialist who is able to actually fill in a lot of the gaps in terms of solving for these platform self-service needs for that team, right? So I'm actually not seeing too much bottleneck until we actually get past that 150 to 200 person like engineer headcount. Beyond that, that's when we start seeing very specialized app teams that are specialists in getting their specific application to solve real business problems, but then everything else in that DevOps, cloud ops, infrastructure realm, that is where they start needing significant pickups from a platform engineering function.
Yeah, I agree, but I think there's a benefit here to the enterprise, whatever the size of the engineering team. I mean, other than perhaps very small ones, to have the flexibility to invest in the particular developer talents you're most interested in, right? And I almost feel like what is this saying? I'll paraphrase it so I don't have to name the vendor. It's like pushing southwards in the stack, pushing features and capabilities southwards in the stack. The ones that won't differentiate the product or apply so specifically to your mission. And so that's you are claiming that that's essential capability platform engineering should be able to provide, given the caveats that Dharani was talking about earlier about how to implement it. This must be, I'm familiar with StackGen's history. I'm not sure everybody else is. StackGen originated as an infrastructure as code automation product. In my view, that puts it in a particularly strong position to enable a lot of platform engineering and IDP capabilities, self-service capabilities, because of how it, which I'll leave you to explain how it automates the creation of and maintenance of infrastructure as code. That capability, because it's sort of infrastructure outward, but nonetheless, focused on self-service capabilities and the needs of applications as they go through their life cycle, I think helps sort of prove the case. That's kind of how I look at it. Dharani, you're the product guy. Articulate that, for me, if you like. What StackGen is doing there, because I think it's a decent example of the sort of thing we're talking about. At least it's in its beginnings.
Yeah, I'm glad that you sort of like laid out our history, right? Like we are a 2-year-old company, roughly, right? Like we had our origins in IAC automation, like you had said, Guy, right? Like the original problem that the founders picked up and actually revolutionized was from application source code, how do you actually automate infrastructure as code generation, right? That was sort of the original problem the company took to solve, right? But we have gone a long way from there, actually, right? Like we learned from our customers that, hey, that's sort of the nirvana, but that's not the only problem, right? Like you got
The IDP is nirvana.
exactly right. Like
The IDP is nirvana.
exactly. So we learned our way through it, right? Like through customer conversations and actually our company culture is deeply rooted in customer centricity, right? Like we work with a lot of enterprises and different teams within enterprises, right? Like both on the platform engineering side as well as their developer advocates and SRE side. And along the way, we picked up many problems to solve, right, on the IDP. You said, right, like IDP being the nirvana, but how do you get there, right? Like because the companies or the customers are in various phases, right? So
to be clear, there's a number of vendors who are in this space of autonomizing, and automating infrastructure provisioning. What stands out to me is, and they use infrastructure as code, they direct it or whatever there's a lot of different approaches to this. What's interesting to me here is what you're saying, which is you started at the infrastructure as code layer and you moved outward strategically as a company. Arnav, I think you have a demonstration of this, right? We have a demo video that we can show.
And actually, just to prime that a little bit, I think IDP. When we thought of IDP three years ago, everyone definitely thought IDP is the nirvana, right? With that said, you could probably look at a lot of. I think you could see a lot of companies today that have launched pretty major IDP initiatives in the past few years that would say, hey, this is actually not all that it's cracked out to be, right? And I think that's primarily because, in my opinion, that's primarily because an IDP itself it's just a platter, right? You still have to figure out what you want to serve on that platter, right? And if the underlying tools and engines that you're trying to stitch into the IDP, if those are not up to par with what's actually going to get the job done for developers, right? Then that makes developers not really care to use an IDP that's not really getting a job done for them, right? And maybe this is an example for that I can kind of highlight in that demo.
Okay, let's call up the demo. I have a few thoughts, but maybe I'll spare everyone my thoughts.
Yeah, sure thing. So this is a quick example, guys, just of what a basic Backstage instance looks like, right? Backstage is we're gonna have a service catalog.
StackGen product. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, in the service catalog, right? That's just where we look for information, but where we really care about optimizing is these self-service creation flows, right? This flow, for example, is just getting a dev created up and running very quickly with like a scaffolding project for a Node.js service and some IC. You can see here, like in all of the fields that we're actually filling in, right? This is where an IDP can really shine, right? We're going to just expose basic inputs that any dev should be able to know: my team name, my name, my GitHub token. Start spinning these things up for me, right? Now, a lot of companies have taken this approach, right? And then they will start setting up some static templates that can set up either IAC or a sample code base for this. Okay, but that's actually where a lot of development stopped, right? A lot of teams internally said, okay, we just gave devs a happy path to get their infra, right? Now they have Terraform for what they need, and that's it. Like we can start solving another problem. But in our opinion, like that problem isn't really solved, right? What if that infra that we just pulled up, right? If I, like for example, right now we're taking a look at all of the IAC files that were just created from this automation. This is great for like 80 or 90% of the teams that are going to be using this exact cookie cutter version of infra. But for teams that need something slightly different, right? Like not every greenfield app is the same. They need still some flexibility to add new resources, right? And this is where, even though they had an IDP, if they didn't have an underlying engine like this, they would still be dealing with ticket ops, right? Just to get this amended, because See what I mean? Yeah. So that's where I think a lot of platform engineering has been a little bit nearsighted and just laser focusing on the IDP itself and not putting enough attention on the mechanisms and engines underneath that IDP that need to get stitched together for a dev to have an actually properly useful flow.
Okay, all right. That's really helpful. I still think it's an IDP though.
An IDP that scales. An IDP that really scales.
Well, yeah, okay. So I hate moving into the realm of vibes and culture and all that stuff. In my opinion, there's been way too much discussion of culture. I understand it because it addresses the fundamental problem of keeping developers productive and happy, which is what we all want to do in complex scenarios. But maybe IDP is this concept. And the words alone, integrated developer platform used to be IDE, and integrated developer environment, and environment turned out to be too specific and so forth. The words themselves don't do it justice, which is that, and I think a great example is one thing I really keyed on at the beginning, Arunav, was you were talking about how developers fill out the fields that they know how to fill out. How many of us have been presented with these provisioning interfaces, custom, tailored by my own organization to meet my own organization's requirements, et cetera. And yet there's like 12 fields in there that it's like gibberish to me. I'm just accepting yes. And I'm not really sure what I'm doing. And the first few times I'm looking it all up, I'm looking for the documentation, I'm trying to figure out what they all do, but eventually I'm just, ning, 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 ning. You're not even presenting it to them, even though they are critically important, because the platform is going to help take care of that. It's going to take care of that for me. Don't worry my pretty little developer head about it. We got platform engineers who are on the case. And am I right? Even if part of the autonomy of this, the AI element of it as well, if I may be so bold, is that there may be wrong choices in there because it's not going to suit the application once I've started working on it. If it's in dev test or even if it's in QA, wherever it is, I may need to add a module, add a capability, add service. So now I don't have to go reprovision. The platform itself is going to notice the change and adapt. Is that right?
Totally. Yeah, that's 100% right. Because and actually that's where solving things agentically through AI is actually going to be a huge value add, right? Because even if we look at, say, the flow that I just showed you guys, right? There was like 12 input fields. Of those 12, maybe even 5 for like a new dev, a junior dev on that team, they might not exactly know, okay, is this the right value to put in here? Maybe let me just go copy paste what I see in someone else's repo, right? And that might be a repo that is deploying something to only internal sandbox environments, right? Not something that's gonna fly in production, right? All of a sudden, now when we try to deploy this thing into prod, we get gated. There's like, blocking errors. Now it's back to ticket ops because we have to ask someone else, why did this thing fail, right? These are things where when we try to solve them agentically, right, that's where actually an AI that was built, like baked into that IDP can actually start making some determinations on, hey, this particular field, it's not worth copying from that other repo, right? These are totally different apps, totally different use cases. This is a sample value that you should use that's going to make sense and going to get you all the way to production where you want to be, right? We're starting to see that can actually fill in this kind of last layer of holes and pitfalls that folks are still getting caught up on, even with otherwise very clean IDP experiences. And this might be just where the future's headed.
Where is the future headed? Yeah, go ahead, Dharani.
Just to double click on what Arunav said, right? Like on the form filling. I know it's might sound a very trivial task, but we actually ran a lot of customer learning exercise before we invested into this agentic roadmap for the form filling, right? If you will. The learning or realization was, I'll take numbers from one of our large customers, right? Only 5 to 10% of the forms actually get filled right away by developers in reality. The remaining 90% actually goes through tickets, right? And the opportunity to automate, right, like here is huge. And that's exactly why we took it upon ourselves to solve it using agentic AI, right? Like with a developer self-service, right? In spite of us being a IAC automation company originally, we took the not a pivot, we took a complementary solution for to leverage agentic AI to improve the actual end developer facing self-service as well. That's sort of history, Guy.
Well, so Dharani, you're again, I said this before. I hate repeating myself. You're the product guy. Tell us what StackGen is doing. Tell us StackGen sponsored this webinar. Let's. I know that you have a slide or two to show us as far as what an actual. So for the audience here, this is an example of the sorts of things that we're talking about. There may be others out there you should explore, but I want to make sure StackGen has a chance to show their particular approach to this opportunity. Often we talk about problems. This is really more of an opportunity to improve your development and presentation of IDPs or whatever you want to call them, and how the developers stay productive and creative. So yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Guy, for that opportunity. So I think I'll restate the problem and quickly go over the solution that we are actually delivering to our products at StackGen, right? The problems we are solving are definitely two or three, four, right? Like two. I'll pick the two personas that we are helping with our automation. One, platform engineering. Another is the developer persona, right? Both of these can be well served with automation, right? If you slightly go back to the demo that Arunav showed, there was this very big piece of automation around IAC generation, right? That's one thing that StackGen excels at, and that's our core value proposition as a platform, right? And number two, there is also this what do you call the self-service challenge for developers, right? Like we spoke about form filling. That needs to be automated as well, right? So as a company, we have built and more in the roadmap, we're building more and more agents and products, right? To help with these two core personas. And there are secondary personas as well, namely SREs with their site reliability, right? And DevSecOps, right? Like ensuring least privilege, right? So those are additional personas we said.
Are you saying that each one of these blobs here, sorry, it's my
Yeah.
terminology, each one of these blobs is essentially addressing a persona? Or are you saying that each one of these blobs is an AI agent or set of agents that is acting on behalf of the persona, or both?
Yeah. So each one of these actually serves a persona primarily, but there are some exceptions. Some agents can help one or two personas, right? It's not a 1:1 with persona. I'll go over them like for clarity, right? Like not too deep. I don't think we have too much time, but well, I'll give a brief, right? So let's talk the row one, right? Like there are two agents there, Stack Builder and Stack Guard, right? Stack Builder is our primary agent, which helps with developer self-service, number one, as well as the whole IAC generation behind the self-service, right? So with Stack Builder, you can generate Terraform, right? Either deterministically or through generative AI. We give options for both, right? Through our module editor, Module Studio, for the platform engineering persona. And for the developers, you could actually use not only Backstage that Arunav just showed, but also we also have like natural language prompts wherein a developer doesn't have to like ask like, hey, give me a load balancer and for my payments application with the database and a S3
It's
bucket.
not whether I need the load balancer, it's what kind of load balancer with what configuration. That's the killer. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
I need to know that. Like, please, yeah.
Yeah. So we believe like the developer doesn't have to know that. Yeah. But again, like they are technical in their own right, with knowledge about services and their application code, right? So they just need to ask, like, give me the well-architected best service for my payment processing application that also needs to have a webhook integration with Stripe. Yeah. They give a natural language prompt like that, And behind the scenes, our AI agent Stack Builder will go pull up the module that is prescribed by the platform engineering for their organization. Not a ChatGPT based experience, but very specific modules defined by their platform administrator within the company. And they get what you call a guided path all the way until like pushing that infrastructure via GitOps and spinning up the infrastructure, right? That's Stack Builder. And the cool thing about Stack Builder is any of the audience here can actually go to a website and try out Stack Builder Express. Yeah, I know I've been at AWS before as well. All the diagrams that the cloud providers provide are super prevalent, right? You can take a snippet of one of the architecture diagram for your public cloud and then like drag and drop it into Stack Builder, and quickly you can see IAC generation, right? So that's a quick way of getting started with Stack Builder, right? That's agent number one. And Stack Guard is the other agent.
You're gonna have to go quick with Stack Guard because we're gonna have to bring this to a close. But go ahead, please.
Yeah. So Stack Guard is the other agent which actually helps with policies, right? There are policies around, hey, I only want S3 buckets to be encrypted all across my organization, right? Any new infrastructure being spun up, like Athena, right, like needs to have encryption on rest and also in transit and whatnot, right? Those are all policies typically written in Rego or custom JSON files, right? StackGuard actually helps with generating those policies more for the platform engineering persona. Yeah, we have a module editor for a policy editor that's actually in preview. We would love to have like customers sign up for a demonstration, and we can actually work with them and since we are in private beta with that StackGuard, we can go on a separate conversation with those. Yeah, and to round it up, the bottom row there, they solve different problems as well, right? Stack Hero is more around remediation for SRE, incident management. And
Stack Arnav, is it StackGen's view that this is relatively complete, at least for now? I mean, that this is at least, where we are at in terms of automating and autonomizing the platform for developer use, like these 5 areas?
This is just the first cut. There's going to be more to come. But this first cut, I think our vision is that these are the use cases that are the most immediately impactful from a platform engineering perspective, because these are the most painful parts for app devs.
Okay. Listen, this has been great. It's been a great discussion. Ticketing, definitely bad. I feel like we zeroed in on that, and there are real opportunities for self-service. And I think we're going to distribute some information, maybe not these slides specifically. Everyone go to the handouts area and get more information about StackGen and what StackGen's doing. I'm appreciative, and on behalf of TechStrong and DevOps.com, we are appreciative for StackGen sponsoring this. I don't think there's enough discussion out there. Odd for me to say, since usually there's too much discussion about such things, but I think platform engineering right now is a hotbed of discussion, and as well as automation, autonomy in operations and that sort of thing. StackGen is in this space, and it's good to hear from StackGen, and also just discuss in general what platform engineers and developers are facing right now, using the experience of Dharani and Arunav working with customers and working through the issues in this space. StackGen just recently repositioned itself, as Dharani referred to, in order to serve this market. So we're really happy to include that perspective here because it's fresh. Dharani, Arunav, thank you for joining me. Thank you, everyone, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you, Greg. It was a pleasure.